The first time the house whispered my name, I thought the wind had learned how to lie. It was just after midnight, the kind of October night where the air tastes like metal and every leaf sounds like footsteps. I stood in the kitchen of the old Haverford place on Willow Lane, a house nobody had lived in for 12 years, holding a flashlight that flickered like it was nervous. My name came from the walls themselves, soft as breath against my ear. Eleanor. I froze, beer bottle halfway to my lips. The realtor had sworn the electricity would be on by tomorrow, but right now the only light came from that dying flashlight and the moon bleeding through the grimy windows. I told myself it was the pipes, or the house settling, or my own tired brain playing tricks after 14 hours on the road. Houses don't talk, everybody knows that, but this one did. I'd bought it sight unseen off a foreclosure listing, one of those too good to be true deals that make sensible people run the other way. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, original hardwood, wraparound porch, and a price tag so low it felt like stealing. The photos showed peeling wallpaper and water stains, but nothing a little elbow grease and 20 grand couldn't fix. My plan was simple: flip it fast, make a profit, keep climbing out of the hole my ex-husband had dug for us both. I needed this house to be ordinary. It had no intention of letting me pretend. That first night I slept on an air mattress in the living room because the stairs creaked like they were warning me away from the second floor. I woke every hour to the sound of someone walking overhead, slow deliberate steps that paused outside what would have been the master bedroom. Bare feet on hardwood. I never heard them come down. By morning I was running on Sprite and coffee from a gas station that smelled like old hot dogs. Sunlight made the place look almost cheerful. The wallpaper was ugly but not haunted, the floors just needed sanding, and the footsteps had probably been raccoons. City girls always think raccoons sound like murderers. I laughed at myself, loud and brittle, and got to work ripping down the living room curtains. Dust exploded everywhere, glittering in the light like dirty snow. That's when I found the first photograph. It was wedged behind the curtain rod, a Polaroid so old the colors had gone sickly. A little girl in a yellow dress stood on the porch, smiling with all her teeth. On the white border beneath, someone had written in careful child's handwriting, "Don't let her in the mirror." I turned it over. On the back, the same handwriting, smaller now, frantic, "She's still looking." My skin went cold despite the stuffy heat. Kids write creepy things. It didn't mean anything. I slipped the picture into my pocket to throw away later and told myself I was being ridiculous. The mirror in question hung in the upstairs hallway, tall and ornate with a frame carved into twisting vines. When the movers finally arrived that afternoon with my pathetic collection of furniture, I had them carry it downstairs and cover it with a sheet. Out of sight, out of mind. I wasn't superstitious. I was practical, mostly. That night the footsteps came again, but they weren't upstairs anymore. They were directly outside the living room door, pacing the length of the hallway and back. I sat on my air mattress clutching a hammer, heart hammering louder than whatever walked out there. The pacing stopped right outside the door. I waited for the knob to turn. It never did. Instead, a small voice said, "You left the back door open." I screamed. The kind of scream that tears your throat. Because the back door had been locked and deadbolted when I went to bed. I know this, because I'd checked it 6 times. I flung the front door open and ran barefoot across the frost-slick grass to my truck. Spent the rest of the night in the cab with the engine running and the hammer on my lap, watching the house watch me back. Its windows were black and depthless, but I swear something moved behind the glass on the second floor. At dawn I called the only person I trust with the weird parts of my life. My brother Caleb answered on the 3rd ring, voice rough with sleep. "I think I bought a haunted house," I said without greeting. He laughed until he realized I wasn't joking. "Get out," he told me. "Right now." "I can't." I sank everything into it. "Then sell it." "To who?" The listing said. "As is, cash only, motivated seller." Nobody wanted this place. That's why it was cheap. Caleb was quiet a long time. "You remember Grandma's stories about the Haverford house?" Grandma told stories about everything. This one was different. She said a family disappeared here in '83. Mom, Dad, little girl. Cops found the parents dead in the kitchen, throats cut. No sign of the kid. They never solved it. I rubbed my eyes. Urban legend. Grandma didn't think so. She said whatever took the girl never left. I hung up and stared at the house. Sunlight did it no favors. The paint was the color of old teeth, the porch sagged like it was tired of standing. But it was mine now, for better or worse. I went back inside because I am stubborn and broke, and because running away felt like letting my ex win all over again. The back door was standing wide open. On the kitchen table sat the Polaroid I'd pocketed yesterday. Someone had drawn red X's over the little girl's eyes. I packed a bag that afternoon and checked into the Willow Motor Lodge, a crumbling strip of rooms that smelled like mildew and regret. The clerk, a woman with a smoker's rasp and kind eyes, took one look at my face and said, "Haverford Place." I nodded. "Thought so. You got the look. Everybody who stays there more than a night gets it." "What look?" "Like you're waiting for something to grab your ankles from under the bed." She slid my key across the counter. "Room 7. My advice: burn sage. Lots of it, and whatever you do, don't look in the mirrors after dark." I laughed nervously. "That's just superstition, honey," she said. "Superstition is what folks call things that already killed somebody." That night I dreamed of the little girl in the yellow dress. She stood at the foot of my motel bed, head tilted, smiling that too wide smile. When she opened her mouth, something long and black poured out like smoke. I woke gasping and drove straight to the library because daylight makes cowards brave. The librarian, Mrs. Detweiler, remembered the case. She was younger then, newly married, and the disappearance had shaken the whole town. She led me to the back room where they kept the old newspapers on microfiche. August 17, 1983. Front page headline: Family Tragedy on Willow Lane. The article was short on details and long on speculation. Daniel and Marie Haverford found dead by a concerned neighbor. Cause of death: multiple lacerations to the throat and chest. Their daughter Abigail, age 7, missing. No suspects. No forced entry. The weapon, a large kitchen knife, was recovered at the scene, wiped clean. There was a picture of Abigail. Same yellow dress. Same smile. Same eyes now crossed out in my photograph. Mrs. Detweiler watched me read. People said the parents were into some bad things toward the end. Seances. Ouija boards. Trying to talk to Marie's mother who'd passed the year before. Folks thought they opened something they couldn't close. I closed the file. Did they ever find her? Never. Some kids claimed they saw her years later, standing in the upstairs window, waving. But the house was empty by then. I thanked her and left with a stack of photocopies and a headache. That evening I sat in my truck outside the house and tried to work up the nerve to go back in. The sun bled out across the sky, turning the windows red. I told myself I was being dramatic. Houses don't eat people. Grief and guilt do. I went inside. The air felt thick, like walking through water. I carried a flashlight even though the power was finally on, because the overhead lights made everything look sick and yellow. I went straight to the kitchen and opened every cabinet, looking for anything the previous owners might have left behind. That's when I found the crawlspace door behind the pantry. It was padlocked. The lock was new. I stared at it for a long time. Someone had been here after the bank took possession. Someone who didn't want whatever was down there to get out. I fetched bolt cutters from the garage. The crawlspace smelled like wet earth and old blood. My flashlight beam caught on something pale in the far corner. A child's shoe. Small, white, covered in dark stains. I backed out so fast I cracked my head on the doorframe. That night I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the porch with a bottle of whiskey and watched the moon crawl across the sky. Around 3 a.m. the porch light flickered even though I hadn't turned it on. Then the front door eased open by itself. From inside came the sound of a child singing. "Ring Around the Rosie," pocket full of posies. The tune was off, slow and dragging, like the record player was dying. I stood up, legs shaking. "Abigail." The singing stopped. A small shadow appeared in the doorway. Yellow dress, bare feet, head tilted at that impossible angle. She raised one hand and beckoned. I don't know why I followed her. Maybe exhaustion, maybe the whiskey, maybe some suicidal curiosity that lives in all of us when we're too tired to lie anymore. She led me upstairs, past the covered mirror, to the master bedroom I hadn't entered yet. The door stood open. Inside, the room was pristine. No dust, no peeling paint. The bed was made with a quilt in bright primary colors. On the dresser sat a row of porcelain dolls, their glass eyes catching the moonlight. Abigail walked to the closet and pointed. I opened it. Inside was a full-length mirror, uncovered. My reflection stared back, pale and hollow-eyed. Then the reflection smiled when I didn't. Behind me, Abigail whispered, "She wants to trade." I spun around. The little girl was gone. In the mirror, she stood behind my reflection, hands on its shoulders. I stumbled backward and yanked the bedroom door shut. Ran downstairs, grabbed my keys, and didn't stop until I was back at the motel. The next morning I called a priest. Father Mike was old school, the kind of man who still wore cassock and collar even on his days off. He agreed to come without asking too many questions. We met at the house just after noon. He walked through every room with holy water and Latin, his face growing grimmer with each step. When he reached the master bedroom he stopped in the doorway and crossed himself 3 times, fast. "There's something here," he said quietly. "Something that was invited. Can you get rid of it?" He looked at me with pity. "Some doors, once opened, don't close again. The best we can hope for is to keep it from spreading." He performed the blessing anyway. Sprinkled water, burned incense that smelled like church basements and guilt. When he finished he told me to sell the house and never come back. I asked what he saw in the bedroom. He wouldn't tell me. That night I stayed in the house because I was out of money for motel rooms and too stubborn to call Caleb. I boarded up the master bedroom door with 2x4s and 20 nails. Slept on the couch with every light in the place burning. At 2:14 a.m. the power went out. In the sudden darkness I heard the slow, deliberate creak of floorboards upstairs. Then the sound of nails being pried loose, one by one. I grabbed the hammer and ran. I made it as far as the front yard before something slammed into me from behind. Not hard enough to hurt, just enough to stop me. Small cold hands pressed against my back. "Don't leave," Abigail whispered against my ear. "She gets lonely." I screamed and swung the hammer blindly. It connected with nothing but air. When I turned around, the little girl stood 10 feet away, head lolling, yellow dress spotless. Behind her, the front door hung open. In the doorway stood my reflection, but it wasn't mine anymore. The face was wrong, stretched too wide, eyes black from edge to edge. It smiled with too many teeth. I ran to my truck and floored it out of there, tires spitting gravel. In the rearview mirror I saw them both standing in the road, hand in hand, watching me go. I drove straight to Caleb's place 3 hours away and slept for 16 hours straight. When I woke up he was sitting beside the bed with a shotgun across his lap. "You're not going back," he said. "I have to. It's my house. It's not a house anymore." I stayed with him a week. Long enough for the dreams to start. Every night the same. Abigail leading me upstairs, the mirror waiting, my reflection reaching out with fingers that ended in broken glass. On the 7th night I woke to find myself standing in Caleb's hallway, barefoot, holding his carving knife. He took it away from me gently and called a doctor who gave me pills that tasted like chalk. They dulled the edges but not the dreams. 2 weeks later the bank called. They'd had an offer on the house. Cash. Full asking price. Buyer wanted to close immediately. I should have said yes. Instead I asked who was buying it. The realtor hesitated. They didn't give a name. Just a law firm out of state. Said they represent a family looking for privacy. I hung up and drove back to Willow Lane because some stories won't let you walk away. The house looked better. Fresh paint the color of bone. New windows that reflected the sky like black water. A for sale sign in the yard with a big red sold sticker across it. I parked down the block and watched. At dusk a black sedan pulled into the driveway. A man got out, tall and thin in an expensive suit. He unlocked the front door and went inside. Lights came on downstairs, then the upstairs ones, one by one, like someone was giving a tour. I waited until full dark before I walked up the porch steps I'd never fixed. The door was unlocked. Inside smelled like lemon polish and something coppery underneath. The furniture was new, sleek and modern. Nothing like the sagging antiques I'd left behind. I heard voices upstairs. A man and a woman, laughing softly. I climbed the stairs slowly. The boarded-up bedroom door was gone, replaced with fresh paint the color of butter. The voices stopped. I pushed the door open. The room was a nursery now. Pale pink walls, white crib, mobile of tiny stars spinning lazily. On the rocking chair sat a woman I recognized from old newspaper photos. Marie Haverford, looking exactly as she had 32 years ago. She smiled when she saw me. "You came back." In the crib something moved. A baby wrapped in yellow blanket, face hidden. Marie stood and lifted the child. "She missed you." The baby turned its head. Black eyes. Too many teeth. I backed away until I hit the wall. Marie walked toward me, crooning softly. "It's all right. We just want to be a family again. You understand families, don't you, Eleanor?" I ran. Down the stairs, through the front door, across the lawn. Behind me I heard her calling my name in that soft, terrible voice. I didn't stop until I reached my truck. Didn't look back until I was on the highway doing 90. In the rearview mirror, the house stood quiet and dark. All the lights were out. But in the upstairs window, 3 silhouettes stood watching. Mother, father, and something that used to be a little girl. Sometimes late at night I still hear my name whispered on the wind. Sometimes I dream of yellow dresses and mirrors that smile when I don't. The house sold the next week. New owners moved in right away. Nice young couple expecting their first child. I drive past sometimes, just to see. The nursery curtains are yellow. And every night at 2:14 a.m., the upstairs light comes on. Just for a minute, then goes dark again, like someone is checking to see if I'm coming home.